Hi, it's Blake again with Northwinds Wilderness School. You may notice that we're not in Wisconsin. We're here in Idaho, Rexburg, Idaho at the Rabbit Stick 31st year Primitive Skills Gathering. And this is my first and maybe only ever celebrity interview. I'm here with Sam Larson, who was the youngest member of the cast of Alone Season 1, the winner of the cast of Alone Season 5, and the author of To Tread in Wild Places, which is awesome. I have read it. Hey, Sam.
Hello.
How's your
Quite
week
the
been?
introduction. It's been a great week. Been really, really busy. Rabbit Stick's great to come and plug in and just try a bunch of skills and work really hard and learn a bunch of stuff all week. It's great.
Awesome. So I think most of my viewers and most of the people here probably know you from your experience on TV. I'm more interested in you as a person, but do you want to share any takeaways that you had from your two experiences being on that show, being out in the woods that long alone?
Yeah, well, I guess real quick, it just is really great to meet the people who I was on the show with, so that's a great experience. And then the solo wilderness experience was awesome as well. It's kind of, I guess you can't say it's once in a lifetime if you've done it twice, but it's a really good excuse to spend a long time in the woods by yourself, and it's you learn lessons doing that you can never learn any other way. So yeah, really appreciate the experience for sure.
That's awesome. I've always wanted a chance to spend a long period of time in the woods by myself, and I've spent long periods of time in the woods, but never by myself. I'm really curious what you think about this airplane. That was an airplane that's been flying us over all day.
The Northwinds School is really high budget. We've got flyovers now, and so living the dream.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say is, I'm curious what got you into all this stuff, into survival and primitive skills and everything.
Yeah, I guess it was always sort of in me somewhere. I loved the idea of like playing in the woods. My parents got me a PVC bow to play with in the backyard when I was like 4, so I grew up that being my favorite thing.
Okay.
I actually got really into like traditional archery as a young man. I was really bad at school, so I knew I had limited options, and then I pursued it through Jack Mountain Bushcraft School. So I did some of their professional training and went back as a teacher's assistant, did a lot of independent training, and then after a few years, Alone contacted me and broken into doing some teaching and assisting and a lot of learning, obviously, out in the woods since then. Got my Woodsong Wilderness Outfitters up and running in Nebraska, and we're off to the races.
Nice. What Woodsong? What do you teach?
Well, Woodsong Wilderness Outfitters is kind of my, I hate to call it like a survival school. It's like more of a wilderness living school.
Okay.
And we teach everything from native plants to game processing and canoeing expeditions. So there's several sort of realms of outdoor education that we jive with.
Nice.
And so I like to keep it a little bit broad and focus on things that are really, really useful to people living in the woods.
Yeah, I like to do the same thing. Our philosophy is to keep our classes easily accessible to anyone, both in scheduling, cost, and in topic. And I appreciate seeing other people who are not doing like the long-term immersion stuff, which is also cool, but it makes it hard for a lot of normal people to get into it.
Yeah. We're kind of a gateway drug to that as well. People who want to do the immersion programs, they can get into it. I've had people do my course and then they're, spending 3 months somewhere else the next fall because they're like, hey, I want to do this. I think we're both in pretty good locations where our locations both need wilderness schools.
Yeah.
If you're the Twin Cities area or east of there, and I'm in Nebraska, there's nothing really around me for it. So yeah, there's good locales for sure.
I don't know anything about. I know one guy in Nebraska other than you. There's some stuff in Minnesota, not a lot. What's the biome like in Nebraska? Are you forests and rivers, or is it like high plains?
Nebraska is really varied. So where I'm at in southeast Nebraska, it's kind of like eastern woodlands. So it's a lot of hardwoods, cottonwood forest as well. Yeah. It's a lot of really polluted rivers from the crop runoff.
Nice.
And then if you go into central Nebraska, the sandhills start, which is sort of a semi-arid, grass-covered sand dune environment.
Okay.
But there's great rivers because of the Ogallala Aquifer is right there.
Okay.
So all these beautiful spring-fed rivers coming through this semi-arid cattle ground, just really beautiful. Northwest Nebraska, if you go all the way out there, it's a pine forest. It's a pine ridge area, and so it's really varied.
Okay.
But where I'm at, pretty much hardwood forest.
I like that. Most of my experience in Nebraska is driving from east to west on 80, so I thought it was just corn.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing you could do. The worst thing about Nebraska is I-80.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, game day traffic's pretty bad.
Yeah. I've been to the Sandhills once, and I really liked it. My dad and I went to the Fur Trade Museum up there, and we went to Fort Robinson, which is, not the happiest place in the world, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
What do you think, if you could sum it up in a, not 3-day lecture, which is what I would have to do, what do you think is the biggest benefit that people get from participating in wilderness programs or primitive skills programs?
Yeah, so to summarize, I guess, when people go into the woods, I think they become better versions of themselves because they're forced to solve problems that they don't normally have to solve when they're going through everyday life, particularly when you're talking to someone who is in like school or something like that. Sitting in a desk every day, you never have to make critical, solve problems critically. So that's great. It forces you to care about things. Yeah. So whether that's caring about your fire to get it going, or caring about yourself in a big river crossing, you're forced to care about things, or putting down an animal in a respectful way.
Yeah.
It forces you to love things and to care about things, and forces you to be really, really humble as well, to let yourself come to grips with the fact that Mother Nature is way, way bigger than you, and you're never gonna overcome it. The people who think they can overcome Mother Nature just don't spend enough time outside, probably.
I 100% agree with that sentiment, and especially the humbleness that comes with it. I also think one of my takeaways from having taught several people is people, once they learn how to be a part of the environment and like how to get food from the environment, how to get water from the environment, they start to realize why nature is as important as it really is versus just going to the grocery store and buying a steak. And I've always felt that when you take people out into the wilderness, that idea becomes really real for them when you start feeding them cattails and June bugs instead of macaroni and cheese and hamburgers.
Yes. Yeah. It's great to see, like on the plant course, where their eyes open up and it's funny because they go through the stage where they're like, everything is food, isn't it? Everything's food. And then by the end of the course, they're like, is there a place to eat close to here? Get some red meat or something like that.
Yeah. I love teaching the plant classes is my favorite because we call it the phenomenon of recognition. Where people first walk into a forest, they just see green.
Right.
And then eventually it's green and burdock, and then green and stinging nettle and burdock, and then green and burdock and stinging nettle and Virginia waterleaf. And I love seeing that in people.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm really curious what the motivation behind your book was, and if you want to tell us anything about your book. I, as a person who has been teaching these skills for several years, actually got a lot out of your book. Plus, I really like the way it's written.
Yeah. So it's I wanted to write a very short and concise book. It's actually meant to be kind of a guidebook for getting people into the outdoors. And when you explain it that way, a lot of people think it doesn't appeal to them necessarily, because a lot of people think that they're already at sort of a middle of the way level as far as skills are concerned when they're really just starting out.
Yeah.
Kind of a pride thing. But yeah, I was teaching a lot of junior high level courses, and I based the book off of my teaching with junior high kids.
Okay.
So it's what I thought junior high kids needed to know to live in the woods comfortably from scratch, like from zero. So we had a lot of kids, for example, who have never lit a match before, right?
Really?
Yeah. So, so it kind of starts from square one.
Okay.
It's like, okay, here's tinder and kindling and fuel, basic things like that. And then it does get into more technical skills. It dabbles in the water area, how to get good water from the landscape. Answers a lot of big questions. Talks about some shelter theory and things of that nature. So kind of tried to go all over the board, but still keep it limited to what I thought was really, really important for those people, which are basically everybody.
Yeah, I totally get that from the book. And I really like the perspective that you took when you were writing it, because like I said, it's super easy to read, it was super fun to read, but I still felt like I learned a couple things from it. Where can people find your book or find you, or how do people find you if they want to take classes from you?
Yeah, so it's woodsongwilderness.com. That's where all of our stuff is. Or they could send me an email, sam@woodsongwilderness.com, or Facebook's a good one as well. I believe I'm Sam Larson -alone, and that might change at some point because you only do alone once or twice, so
Right.
I might take that off. But Sam Larson, it'd be Sam Larson Wood Song or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking this time to talk to me, and I mean, you and I met because you were on TV, but I think that there's a lot more to you than that TV show, and I hope that
We would have been buddies anyway.
I think so. I hope that carries you through into the future, and I wish you all the success. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you, Blake.
Sam, it's been great.
It's a lot of fun. Drive safe, okay?
I will.